Welcome to Entrepreneur Like You with business attorney and entrepreneur Chance Reynolds. A daily podcast that brings you the best legal tips, marketing strategies, and storytelling tactics that will help you grow your business the right way.
All right, sorry the podcast is coming out a little bit later today. I had a very unfortunate mishap this morning at the doctor. So I go in at 7 a.m. to get some blood work done because I'm getting older and I have cholesterol issues. So I have to get it monitored every 3 months. And I went in to the lab and the doctor, for whatever reason, I don't want to blame the doctor, the lab did not receive the lab order. So the doctor's office obviously doesn't open until 9. I can't wait up there till 9. Plus this is a fasting test, meaning I can't eat or drink anything for 12 hours previous. And then by 7 a.m. I'm up for a few hours already and I need my coffee. So I have to skip out and go back to the doctor tomorrow morning. That was kind of not a great way to start the morning. And then after that, I had already planned to give blood and then record my podcast, right there in the car afterwards, just sitting in the parking lot. I did that, recorded it, got home to plug it in to distribute it and post it. And for whatever reason, the audio didn't take very well. So it sounded really bad. And I was like, yeah, I've got to redo it. Anyway, I listened to a podcast this morning that is very fitting. Had some fitting advice from a common person I talk about on here. It seems like Tim Ferriss, and he's just promoting a new book right now. So he's kind of on all the podcasts that I like to listen to, but he gave some advice about starting his own podcast, and how and why he did it. He was kind of coming off of a failure for a book he had written called The 4-Hour Chef that didn't do a lot of sales, and he was taking some time off of writing, and he wanted to do something that was short term and low effort. And so he decided to do 6 episodes of his podcast where he was interviewing, famous people and figuring out exactly, not necessarily famous people, but extremely successful people, figuring out what type of routines and habits and things they have. And it turned out now, in hindsight, to be I think he said at least 2 or 3 times more than any of his books per year. His podcast brings in that much money. Plus he's written 2 books just off of the podcast itself. And so the advice he gave, or the lesson that he said he had learned, was just to keep standing up. And it reminded me of something that had happened to me on a previous podcast I had started, where I've talked about this on here before, but I did some law school tutoring courses, and I would interview law school students from all around the country, put out one interview episode per week, about 30-minute episodes. And I did that for like 30 weeks. And I was doing that while I was getting barred. And once I got barred, I took the bar exam. I kind of drifted away from that a little bit, and then eventually just gave up on it because I didn't feel like I could give that as much effort if I was doing the LLC stuff and kind of working more in the legal realm, which is what I really wanted to do. And I was a lot more passionate about what I'm doing now than I was then. And I really liked helping law school students, and I really enjoyed talking to them, but it just wasn't something that was going to work on the long term. So I kind of put that on the back burner, and then eventually it just kind of faded away. And I realized, I'm just not going to get back to that. But when that happened, I abandoned that podcast, but the podcast kept getting, like thousands of downloads. And for such like a small niche market of law school students, it's really picked up. And then I got nominated randomly for an ABA journal, the American Bar Association journal, at the end of the year. Like every magazine does like a best of the year. Well, they do, best blogs, best, new attorneys, whatever. And then they do best legal podcasts. Well, I think there were like 15 or 20 podcasts that actually won got listed in the ABA journal as like the top 20, and they weren't ranked in any order, I don't think. But, of course, I've heard of at least 15 of the 20 of those, and my podcast did not get selected on there because I abandoned it. My theory is that it's because I abandoned it because I looked at a lot of the podcasts on there, and some of them are just garbage. I mean, just terrible. There just aren't that many good podcasts about legal issues. And I'm not talking about like crime thrillers and like whodunits type podcasts. I'm talking about actual bare bones legal podcasts and interviews with law school students and things like that. Mine was pretty unique, and I spent a lot of time on it, and that's why I think it got such a good reaction. And I think if I had continued, I would have been on that list. And it was one of those things that if I had just kept standing up and kept doing that, even if that was the only content I kept creating, I would have been on that list, and that would have been a cool thing to have happen. It wouldn't have translated into anything really all that important in my business, but it would have been cool. But I didn't keep doing it, and I missed out on that. And even though it's my own doing that I missed out on it, and it's nobody to blame but myself, it kind of made me like feel sorry for myself a little bit last night, because I was like, oh man, I could have been listed in this thing, and I didn't continue doing what I had put so much work into. I abandoned it prematurely, and this is the result of that. So it's a lesson learned, is that I remember when that podcast was starting out, and there were several months where the episodes would only get, 30 downloads or something. And now even the first ones have gotten up over, around 500 downloads each. And that's pretty good for a little niche podcast that I'm not even promoting and that I stopped doing 6 months ago. And I'm still getting thousands of downloads a month off of something that I at first, if I had been looking at the numbers every day, I would have abandoned it, because it was just, it would have been discouraging. And I have done podcasts previous to that, so I know it's not that easy unless you're putting a lot of advertising dollars behind your podcast, which I never advertised that podcast ever, not a single penny. It's really hard to build a following real quick. It's all about consistency. It's all about continuing to stand up. Either way, that's what's going on with me today. Just realizing you got to stick with it. Like this podcast right now, I'm not getting thousands of downloads, but every day it's gaining more momentum. It's more people are seeing it, more people are becoming exposed to it, and I'm hearing from more people. So I'm going to keep pushing forward regardless of what the numbers are. And maybe a year from now, maybe 2 years from now, it's something that's really special and something where I've really found a voice and found something I can help people with and provide value to other entrepreneurs with. Either way, have a great day. I'm going to try to bounce back and get a more positive attitude today, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate everybody tuning in and all the great feedback I'm getting about the podcast, so I'm going to keep it up, and I just wanted to say thank you. Also, if you want to figure out the 3 ways that most entrepreneurs are getting themselves sued, you can head over to llcfreedom.com/getsued. I have a little freebie there that kind of outlines the 3 major ways that people are getting sued and how they can easily be avoided. So hop over to llcfreedom.com/getsued and pick that up today.